since then, we've been involved with making story modes. And then so this kind of gets all the way back, all these little things that lead up. And then we're actually making movies again. But with our movies, they're unique because they're branchable. So you're not just making a linear story, you can actually make decisions. Have we got it right yet? No. We still have a lot to learn. And it's difficult getting all this done within the time constraints that we have. But one thing that Madden is, they've been really great about letting us get like really great talent. The long shot, Herschel Ali. We worked with him, Dan Marino, and that's been great. We integrated with NFL talent, and that's been an awesome experience. Just get there. It's been difficult in the time. And there's a lot of things I'd love to make better, but we're really pushing what we can do with the acting, the cinematography. We have an amazing cinematographer, Brian Murray, who was an NFL Films cinematographer, and he's literally like, here he is at the Super Bowl, on the field filming. He also took an Emmy Award for his work on Hard Knocks. But we've been able to convert all of our camera equipment over to actually film the digital world. So we've been doing this for quite a while. And so we can piece together the animations, and he's actually filming these, and we're able to capture that camera data and put it in. And then that's all throughout the game. So really learning all these different aspects of this we're going through, and even coordinating stunt work. We'll have ex-NFL talent or college talent. Here's is capturing the Lambeau leap, and just learning how to coordinate that and work with stunt coordinators. And then with the actors, this has just been unbelievable, the talent. I mean, here's Barry Corbin, and we got to spend a lot of time with him. And then it's for me as an animator, learning more about what the actors bring to this, and learning to communicate with this and let them do what they do the best, and give them that opportunity to bring that in as we capture. That's really been an awesome learning thing for me going through.
So I want to understand. So are you still the art director on the games?
The last few years I'm more the cinematics animation director, and
can you describe what the role of an art director is for Madden, and then what responsibilities you currently have, which is probably a little bit broader?
Yeah, sure. The art director is really responsible for the visuals for the whole game, and so what the stadiums are looking like, what the lighting, what the characters look like. Do you have the uniforms correct? Is the grass looking good? The user interface, all the menus that go through, anything that makes it look good, the art director is responsible for that. And it is a daunting task, because not only we have our crew here, we have crew in Vancouver, we have crew in Shanghai, really scattered around the world, and just coordinating all that together. Now I'm really more focused on the animation and the acting. So doing all the previs and the planning, storyboarding, getting the story to correct, and then planning for the motion capture shoots. Because at the end of the day, you have a very limited space. We obviously have more room in Vancouver. We have a very large set there that we can coordinate. But something like the Lambeau Leap, this stuff had to be built in conjunction with what we have in the game. So using 3D models to plan all that out, and then even the sets as we go through. So just making sure that all this is actually built properly on the sets, and then the actors have everything they need going through rehearsals, and then getting that data, everything that you need. And then once you get that data, the motion capture data, working with the animation crew to get it cleaned up. There's a lot of limitations, especially with the motion capture suits. People can't hug, right? Because you'll block the data. So you gotta go back and fix that. And something simple as throwing the football. So this is this is my crew here in Florida. And this is my crew here in Nanjing, and part of Shanghai and Nanjing, and really awesome people there. I wasn't able to go visit them this year, but usually I make a yearly visit. But one of the things that I I love doing this. I'm always looking for team building things with my crew. And let's face it, they don't play a lot of football in China, right?
Yes.
And so one thing we cannot do is actually take a football and we can't throw it on the set because it can go off and our cameras are very expensive, right? And so we have to fake it. So you're not getting a lot of the weight going through there and there's a lot of things you miss and even catching it. So this is where this is just a small example. The animators do much more. But this is an example where I depend on my crew and a lot of them just don't understand those, the subtleties of the game. And so we go through training with them. We've actually sent, players for the animators to go through. They'll go through little boot camps to understand, to play the game. But this particular one is really getting the passing down. So really getting, grabbing by the stitches and getting that roll off to get that perfect spiral. And so the crew here is half female, half male. So I split them up. We ran through drills, and then today we had targets up here. I stuck footballs in my in my suitcase and brought these targets. But it was guys against girls, and we put blue chalk on the football. Then you got to mark where that was. They would sign their name, and it came down to this young lady. And it came down to one guy, one girl. And I told the guy, I had the translator, I said, I don't know how it is in your country, but a girl beat you. And he was just, he blew it. And so they never let him lift it down. But man, it was such an amazing experience. Here we are playing, and all of a sudden this crowd just started coming around the fences. All these families just to watch us. And it was definitely, I had NFL hats for them as prizes. Just to be able to incorporate that and get them involved, and that was just an awesome experience. When I first went, the studio asked me to do, here's Vicky, they asked me to do a presentation on my career because they had no idea what it was. And so I showed them something very similar. I showed them especially the Disney stuff, and all the cameras came out, like when I was showing the Milan stuff, right? And I was like, okay, what's going on? And afterwards, everybody stood in line to meet me and get their picture taken. And the girls there, and we were always told that Mulan did not do well in China. It just didn't make a lot of money. And we always thought they just didn't like it. But the truth is they loved it. But during that time, nobody had money to go and see the movie. So everybody saw it as a bootleg copy. And these women told me that loving the film, but also it inspired them to do more as women than their culture usually expected from them, right? And it also inspired them to be animators. And the fact that they were working with me, and we've been close friends ever since. I just thought that was so cool that, going back to Disney, and even on the other side of the world, there's this connection, if you will.
Your football story reminded me, back when I was starting out, one of my first freelance animation gigs was for Disney TV. They were doing the Mighty Ducks series, and it was being done in Korea, and that was a series about hockey. And the production here realized people in Korea probably have never played the game of hockey before, so they had me animate a few shots, just like a slap shot, a wrist shot, some skating, and then when the series came out, it was my animation. That's the opening credits. So they just cleaned it up, colored it, and used it. But it was the same idea, which is, we need to help them because it's something they're not that familiar with. So,
and you can't just be behind your computer all the time and working. You kind of got to get out there and experience these things.
But that's one of the toughest things nowadays, Tony, is getting people out into the world, getting them out from behind a computer or drawing desk and out experiencing stuff, as opposed to just researching it on YouTube or something.
Nope.
You're right. You got to get out there and throw the ball or, hit the puck, whatever it is, to really understand it and feel it.
Also, just to be healthy, you got to clear your head. You got to clear your head and get out there. So, anything you take anything away from this talk, please, you got to get out there and live life, right? So,
you said something that made me think. With the Madden games and the mocap, how often is the athlete who's being portrayed coming in and doing mocap, and how often is it an actor coming in and you're capturing the actor's movements and then putting a model of an athlete over the top of that actor?
It's a great question, buddy. Stunt work wise, we're not allowed to use anybody from the NFL. Insurance wise, we don't want them to get hurt, right? And also it's timing. They're just busy when we got, when we're capturing the mocap is right at the beginning of the season. So we're not going to get them. And so we get people that used to be in the NFL or college, and they go through a rigorous, casting call to be able to get the talent that we need. For acting, it really depends. Dan Marino, we captured him. He was in the suit. Got to work with Coach Bill Cower. He was in the suit. A lot of times we just don't have access to the guys, so we will get an actor, and then replace the facial animation and the voiceover as we need to. But it really depends on timing, who we can get at the time.
And as far as the facial features, are you guys doing scans, or are you just designing a model?
We'll scan everybody, and that way we're getting real textures and everything, and then we can use that point cloud data to actually reconstruct the head. So that'll reconstruct the geometry, and then the scan itself literally gets stretched onto that geometry. And the simplified is we use polarization filters that takes out all the lighting information and gives you your base texture, and that way we can actually light it depending on the lighting situations within the game, and so all that is dynamic.
Is the reason you utilize Korea, is it a cost issue?
We have a studio in Shanghai, and
EA does. EA has a studio there.
Yeah, we have a studio there. So I couldn't talk about the financials. It's just like a large group of talent. They work out really well. So it's a combination between here and there, and be able to get that through.
So this leads into perfectly what you were just talking about with the Milan crew being inspired by the movie and then trying to get into animation or other things. This is another way you're inspiring the next generation.
Yeah, this is something I'm probably the most proud of. We were very fortunate to be part of a really great Boy Scout troop. So both my sons are Eagle Scouts, and I was a Scoutmaster for years. And we always challenged the boys to do like a high adventure every year. And so we would train for it all year, and then we'd go off and hike, Philmont, 100 miles through the Rockies, or going up to northern Minnesota and literally living out of the canoe for a week. And it just an amazing experiences with the boys, and just want to be able to give back. And the Boy Scouts of America reached out to me with several others. I was just a co-author on this to help put together the animation merit badge, so young people can actually take this book and get a glimpse as to what animation could be as a career. So it's a bit of a springboard. That's one thing I always appreciate about the merit badges, is it gives you a little taste of something you may want to do, and then it could inspire you to do something for the rest of your life. And so I was really proud of the way this turned out. When you go through and learn about the different colleges, you can go through what animators do for a living, the different types of animation are there, and just kind of give you a heads up for young people to be able to take that and hopefully be able to pursue that as they're going through.
Is the book available to the public?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Where can they find it?
Boy Scout shops. I think you can order it online. You should be able to order it online.
Okay.
I've never checked on that, but usually your Boy Scouts of America shops will have it there. But I'm pretty sure you can order it. So it's I was really happy the way that turned out. The merit badge is actually a bouncing ball, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of takes me back to Glenn Vilpu. When I saw you last year,
yeah,
that CTN, I actually ran into Glenn, and I don't know. As we get older, Randy, you start looking back on those little turning points in your life, how things could have gone really bad or really good.
Yeah.
And it's telling you, Glenn helped me get that scholarship. Well, this was an opportunity for me to say thank you. So I gave him an animation merit badge, and I never knew this about the man, but he was a Scoutmaster too, and he was a Boy Scout. And he said, it's been a long time since I've earned a merit badge, and that was awesome, just to be able to say thank you. For that, and in the time and what he did. So it all comes around, right?
Okay, so are you working on a new Madden right now? Okay. Are you going to continue with Madden? Can you talk about that at all?
Hey, they've given me a really great home, and they're letting me push things every year. What we're doing with this, I'm still learning. Uh, yeah, a lot to be thankful for. But yeah, we have to put it out every year, man. So um, enjoying a little Christmas break, but come later this week, I'm back at it.
Has your crew changed in size over the years since you started in Madden? Has it grown?
It goes both ways, really.
Okay, it shrinks and grows. Okay.
Yeah, depending on the features that we're putting in or what we're doing, but about the same, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the other thing too, the storylines that you're doing with Mahershala Ali and Dan Marino. Is that simultaneous along with Madden?
Yeah, well, that one we were able to get a jump on it a year to start planning and just kind of getting that together. And it's something that we've got to get better about. Just the timeline for making movies is difficult within the constraints of the yearly release, right? So getting a jump on that in the planning, and I think there's a lot of people miss out on in all of our industries is the amount of time it takes to actually cultivate that and get a good story going and flush all that out before you go into production. It's always a challenge that we always have, right?
Yeah, because a movie is you have time restraints. Just for how much time you can tell it in.
Yeah.
So you're always trying to squeeze in the stuff that matters the most, that drives the story, that's entertaining. Yeah, there's and then like some of the footage that you did that got cut, some great stuff oftentimes ends up on the cutting room floor, unfortunately, if it doesn't benefit the story, service the story or the character.
Yeah, at the time when you're younger, you're really upset about it, but then as you get older, it's like, well, I didn't have to give back the money.
That's right. You didn't, and you apparently you still have some of the footage, so that helps. You kept that.
Got paid for it.
And so, being at EA when it's grown as much as it has, is there any stuff that you can talk about about where things might be going in not only the video game field but just entertainment?
Probably not a lot I can talk about, but I am excited for the future.
That's saying something. Yeah, even if you can't divulge.
Very much. Well, look at even the way movies are changing, and just we can't go to the theaters anymore, and more on Netflix or Disney Plus, and just you're no longer limited to the normal time constraints of a movie. And if a story carries along several episodes, we can start telling those stories, right? I truly think that there's opportunities for more and better stories, right, that are not within those constraints. And for us, the hardware is getting better. With the new consoles that are out now, we can get better animations because we were limited on what we can do from a runtime standpoint, and be able to hold more textures. It just gets more and more real. And for us, within the storytelling aspect where you can actually create yourself and then you get inserted into these stories, and there's a whole different way of actually constructing those and limitations, right? Because can't call you by your name. Are we going to record that for everybody throughout, And so there's all these creative things that you have to do to be able to get around that, right? And it's like, all right, you could be 6'5" or you can be 5'7". All of a sudden your cinematography is off, right? That's where you're framing that character. How do you get around that? There's all these little things that add up from a technical standpoint that we're figuring it out, right? And so it's pretty exciting.
Madden's a real interesting thing. It's super exciting that you got to work on that title, because what Madden has done for a lot of people, because there's only a finite number of people that'll play in the NFL, but that game gives people a bit of the experience of what it's like without the bruises and the ice baths and that kind of stuff, what it's like to be on the field. And every time EA advances the technology and somebody like yourself adds a little bit more realism, goes to the stadiums to try to make the experience feel like you're there at the stadium, on the field, in the play, calling the play, you bring the audience into that, which is sports is a storyline, and you're allowing people that opportunity.
It's a good learning tool. I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of work that the designers go through to get actual plays, we're actually meeting with a lot of the offensive and defensive coordinators to make sure that the plays are right. And then, getting those in and programmed in so the animations are playing back properly to be able to get that. And it becomes a great teaching tool.
And that game gives people a sense of that experience of being a professional athlete in that moment against other professional athletes that they would never have the opportunity before. And that experience is kind of what I think is we're going to continue with. You're just going to get more entrenched in the experience, whether it's through VR or AR or something else. That experience is going to grow, and that line between reality and fantasy is going to get blurred more and more. Hopefully it'll never get to the point where the people playing the game need the ice baths and have to have a trainer or somebody come in and work on their bruises or their sprained wrists or ankles or anything, or broken bones. But it's the technology and the imagination that's pulling us closer to reality, and giving us that opportunity to experience something that normally you'd never get a chance to experience, which goes into your storytelling background too. What makes a compelling story? It's not just about the experience, that's part of it, but you got to give them a compelling story to go along with. That's what keeps you there. And that kind of is that bridge between the two things that's kind of coming into play.
Yeah, you lose that empathy that you have within a storytelling aspect of it, and it's something completely different where you're actually living it, making those decisions as you go through, which is a totally different type of entertainment as you're going. So it's be able to piece that somewhat of a storyline in between the games that is the main reason that you're there, but you still got to make that interesting to be able to carry that through the thread, if you will.
So what about, is there any of your own stuff that you can talk about? Are you working on anything that's not sports related, that's not a football game related, that you would like to see?
I have been really just taken with VR lately.
Yeah.
And just learning how to build within there and work within it. And I actually built my own game last year just for fun, just to understand it. And it's just, the possibilities are endless for gaming within the social interactions with that, but also learning what a really powerful production tool VR can be. So I'm really excited for that, and then where we can go. I think that's something we all should be looking at right now, because it is just the price point's coming down, the tools are getting better, and it's definitely a tool that should be taken very seriously.
So with VR, is there because there's only a couple of players right now, right, in the VR space for the consumer?
Yes.
Is is that going to grow? Are there going to be more, or is just the current ones just going to get better? Do you have any thought?
Yeah, they're getting better. I think Oculus is going to be out there for the mass market from the price standpoint and where they're going with this. Understanding that could be more of a social platform. Oculus being owned by Facebook,
Yeah.
but there are some really interesting games that are happening there, and just the opportunities for multiplayer to be able to go through there. There really some really good stuff coming, and people are still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But it's definitely getting good. So,
are you guys involved or communicating with any of the other entertainment studios to do more collaborations or anything like that?
we collaborated with ILM on Star Wars. What we're doing with that, you can check out Rogue Squadron,
Mhm.
which came out this year. It's a VR game where you're actually flying an X-wing or a TIE fighter, and it's a multiplayer that turned out really well. And so there's a lot of collaboration with them just to make sure that we're being true to the characters and the models and so forth. And so yeah, really a lot of exciting things going on there.
There was something else I wanted to talk to you about. You touched on the mentors, the people that mentored you.
Yeah.
Um, with the younger generation coming up and you mentoring them, are you encouraging them to become mentors themselves someday? Because that connection with an individual where you're not just learning like book learning, it's on a more intimate level, more subtler level, closer level where over a lunch you might learn something as opposed to in a classroom setting. Are you encouraging the younger people to also think about mentoring other people?
Absolutely. Yeah, my crew, I always look for opportunities for them to speak about what they're doing because I've been really fortunate. Some of these younger people I have on my team are just absolutely brilliant, and just how fast they pick up the technology, right? A lot of times they're figuring out better ways to do it.
Yeah.
But I do encourage them, and everybody coming in has a mentor, and they're assigned that. And so this is your big brother, big sister, whatever, and they're your go-to. And so they're forced to pass on their knowledge as they go, and that is so important to kind of keep that going. And you learn by teaching because you're forced to simplify your thoughts to a point that you actually get them across. And a lot of times that reinforces what you've learned, and then that becomes a really powerful tool for everybody on my crew. And I encourage it all the time.
Uh, there's something that I've kind of noticed, and I'm curious if you have too, Tony, with because you mentioned how quick they adapt to technology, the younger people these days. Do you do you notice or ever have some awareness of the younger people understanding the technology, being able to utilize it, and like you said, figure out ways quicker, but they lack a little bit of the fundamentals and the traditional stuff that everything is built upon. Because I'm sure like me, we started a little old schooly, and we still operate from our starting point still kind of from the same place. And young people tend to jump over those first few steps and jump ahead of themselves, and then have to backtrack often and correct and fix things because they didn't have a firm enough foundation where they're starting from. Are you noticing any of that in your world?
Yeah, yeah, and it gets back to what Boss Rutan says. You have to have that foundation of a house. Without foundation, boom, your house will crumble. And it's not only artistic, right, or understanding the technology. It is probably one of the most important things you have to get good at or be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Is communicating and learning that different people communicate different ways. And you have to be able to adjust your communication skills based on that. And a lot of it varies with age or with how people grew up. But some people, you're better off, writing an email and explaining things in a list. But also as artists, being illustrative with that. Take the time to take some images, do some markups, right? And especially on a frame by frame basis. I use Shotgun a lot for my feedback where I can actually go on drawing the frames. And that drawing transcends any language going through, right? And so even though we're doing computer animation, the drawing skills still help communicate direction. But some people it's the email and a follow up with a conversation, right? But just be able, how do you address that? Um, you know, and especially in the world we're living in, working from home, getting used to these Zoom meetings and being very clear with that and how you're breaking down and doing like a follow up email. This is what we discussed, and this is going through. All these little things add up just to make sure that you're communicating what you've been assigned. Did you understand what your assignment was? And this is what I'm doing moving forward. These are the roadblocks that I had. This is how I had to adjust. This is okay. Or if you're giving direction, you know, being very clear about where you need to be going. Because at the end of the day, if you give that wrong direction and you want them to go that way and they go that way, well, you just wasted a lot of money to get them back, right? So there's understanding how to get that direction and just enough to have them to do their job, but then also finding that leeway where they have to kind of figure things out, right? And so they can learn. And so it's always a balancing act. But I
Yeah.
would say that's probably one of the most important things that I'm always stressing, and even my older animators is just communication skills. That is so important. I mean, just even how to write an email. It just so not everything's bunched together and just like one paragraph and a bunch of different thoughts, spreading it out one idea, per paragraph, and be able to illustrate that and break that down and follow it up. There's definitely lessons that can be learned there, so that everybody's very clear what needs to be done. So
Or sometimes that extremely long email, which rambles on and goes on forever, and you lose, like, you just get tired of reading it because you don't know what it's trying to tell you.
you got to be, it's like, what's that saying? Can't remember who said it. I want to say Lincoln, but I think he wrote to somebody, said, apologize for the long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one.
Yeah, communication's definitely a hurdle for everybody, especially I don't think people quite understand our industry, because artists right off the bat usually aren't good communicators. There's some that are, but most are more introverted, quiet. They like what they like, they know what they know, but and we're also very sensitive. If somebody doesn't like our work, we can be
You got to get over that, because at the end of the day, I mean, if you don't want anybody to criticize your work, go do your own painting, go do your own work.
Yeah.
That's off company hours. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, you're making a product that is being sold, and there's a lot of people responsible for that, and it's your job to get that out, right? They're paying you to actually get out this product, and you may not be the key decision, but you may not like that decision, but somebody else had to make that, and you have to support that and get that through. And so you find things within that do appeal to you, and you learn from it. And like I said, there's been things throughout my career I was like, damn, I really don't want to go do this game, but guess what? I learned this and this from it, and I was able to apply it to something else.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind. You got many years to go, and somewhere that comes back to help you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key. Every time you do something, you should be able to gain something from it, to learn something from it, and then apply that as you move forward. So yeah, it might feel difficult at the time or frustrating at the time, but at some point, stop, reflect. I bet you got something positive out of it. You just don't know it yet. I just want to ask you about one last thing about the games side of things. Are the games, do you feel, becoming more cinematic? Are we blurring the lines even more between a game and story and visual entertainment?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all starting to blur together, and you're getting more professional filmmakers involved in game making, and vice versa. I mean, look at what the Mandalorian's doing with the Unreal Engine for their backplate technology. Brilliant, just
Yeah.
brilliant. And so it's all really coming together, the tool sets. It's a fascinating world, it really is.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but for me, because I still feel a little bit like an outsider sometimes, it feels like the limits and the boundaries are being pushed out. There's less and fewer limitations now. The limitations are still in our minds. We just have to rethink, reimagine, and there's all these other possibilities out there of ways to do things, or ways to tell stories, or visually show something. It's nowadays with technology, there's always a way. You just maybe aren't aware of it yet, so you have to go out and kind of seek it and find it. But there's so many things. Tony Stanley, thank you so much for your time today, my friend.
Absolutely.
You.
This was a pleasure, man. It was always great catching up with you, and man, I wish you all the best, and hopefully get to come out and see you guys soon.
All right, Tone. I'll talk to you later.
Take care, buddy. Bye.
Randy.